of Michigan Friends of Companion Animals. Our presentation today our presenters for today will be Alicia Progowski, and she's the president and, oops, I'm trying to move the slides here, page down. That's not sliding. There we go. So Alicia is the president and founder of Cooley Law School Student Animal Legal Defense Fund. She's also a Humane Society district leader for Meridian Township and coordinator for Michigan's Political Action Committee for Animals. So we're going to just go over a few things for the webinar for participants. All the microphones will be on mute for the first for the first part of the webinar, and if you have a question, we'll save those for the end. There should be on the right side in your toolbar a place that you can submit a question in the chat box, and we'll go ahead and read those at the end. But you can also raise your hand. There should be a button there to raise your hand and ask a question that way as well at the end. But everyone's on mute to reduce the background noise, and again, save your questions for the end. We are recording this, and it will be posted on our Michigan Friends of Companion Animals website. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alicia. I think there's a delay in my hitting the slides here. I'm sorry. All right. There we go. All right, so go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today we are presenting on the Humane Pet Acquisition Proposal, which, as you can see on the slide, is a collection of templates, including a model ordinance, that cities or counties can use to combat puppy mills. During this webinar, we'll provide an overview of the problems associated with selling these animals in retail pet stores, how you can approach stores to transition to a humane model, and pass the model ordinance with step-by-step instructions.
Sorry, there's a delay. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. And so the Michigan Friends of Companion Animals Coalition website, which you should definitely check out, includes a page dedicated to the Humane Pet Acquisition Proposal, including the model ordinance and other resources. You can find templates, frequently asked questions, and how to take action right on the website. And so now the purpose of the model ordinance is to protect animals from inhumane conditions, protect families from purchasing sick animals, and encourage families to carefully plan for new companion animals through adoption programs. The breeder featured here on this slide kenneled nearly 200 adult dogs with repeat USDA violations to the Animal Welfare Act related to veterinary care. He sold directly to the family puppy, which is Michigan's largest chain puppy retailer. And this just shows why it's so important to address the issue at multiple levels. So there are many problems with selling puppies through retail outlets, but there are also problems with the puppies themselves, as you can see from the very long list of illnesses on this slide. Due to overbreeding and inbreeding, puppies sold at pet stores can have all sorts of illnesses and genetic defects. Now this slide lists just some of the problems noted by customers who had purchased puppies from one of the Family of Pets locations in Michigan. These items were reported to PetShopPuppies.org. Many of these items noted are contagious to humans. In 2013, 15% of the puppies shipped to the family puppy had serious and costly medical issues. And in addition, ill and genetically defective puppies can cost their new owners hundreds or even thousands of dollars in veterinary care. So the problems associated with puppy mills are very, very extensive. So responsible breeders don't sell to pet stores. Responsible breeders belong to local breed clubs, which normally have a code of ethics that does not allow sales to pet stores. Good breeders usually have waiting lists, and they never have a surplus of puppies. They also take pride in their work, and they want to know where their puppies are being placed. so they can rehome them if there are any problems. And then this slide just kind of shows the line from the puppy farmer all the way down to the pet store and the customer. Most pet stores order puppies from a broker, also known as a wholesale dealer, who works with various breeders. The puppies are shipped through the broker to the pet stores where families unknowingly purchase pets with illnesses or genetic defects. Most states require certificates of veterinary inspection, also known as CVI reports, for canines imported into the state, which require certain vaccinations and a wellness check by an accredited veterinarian. And these CVIs are public records. Puppy Mill Awareness of Southeast Michigan, a local animal welfare organization, has identified 31 puppy retailers acquiring dogs from commercial breeders out of state, and 15 are still actively selling puppies. Most families would never purchase directly from facilities like these with over 200 dogs, and the standards are far below what almost any person would consider acceptable. Even the smaller kennels were cited for dangerous enclosures, debris, lack of veterinary care, including rotted teeth and injuries. And so now we're going to briefly go over the problems with other species, because the problem really is much broader than just puppy mills. So here we have the problems with pet store kittens. Many pet stores get their kittens from people wanting to get rid of their accidental litters or from breeders who are not licensed. There are only 58 catteries licensed by the USDA, most of them located in the Midwestern states. Missouri has the most licensed catteries, and there are no licensed breeders in Michigan. Bad breeders keep their cats in sheds, basements, or possibly in a room in a home where they may go unnoticed by inspectors. They're similar to puppy mills, as they receive minimal veterinary care, quality food, housing, or socialization. And now we look at the problems with pet store rabbits. There is a little bit of good news here that large chains like Petco and PetSmart have already ended rabbit retail sales. However, Pet Supplies Plus is a primary rabbit retailer in Michigan. The stores located in Macomb County import rabbits from a USDA licensed broker located in California. Commercial rabbitries are similar to puppy mills because rabbits are mass-produced with minimal shelter, exercise, or veterinary care. Baby rabbits bought annually as Easter gifts end up unwanted within weeks or months after the novelty is worn off, and the majority of those unwanted rabbits will be either abandoned outdoors where they can't survive, or brought to animal shelters where they might be euthanized because there aren't enough homes. According to the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development Animal Shelter Activity Report, in 2013, nearly 900 rabbits were surrendered to Michigan shelters, and nearly 300 were not adopted. So that's, there's a really big problem with rabbits as well. And then we look at ferrets. The larger photo here was taken at the Motor City Ferret Rescue Facility, where families can adopt ferrets and learn how to properly care for them. You look at what a nice space that is, how it's different from some of the spaces we've seen in previous photos of puppy or kitten or rabbit mill. Michigan also has another ferret rescue in Grand Rapids, the West Michigan Ferret Connection. Ferrets bred in large warehouses are often grouped in small cages with dangerous metal wire floors, and they're deprived of any opportunity to engage in natural behaviors such as burrowing or hiding. Well, PetSmart has discontinued sales of ferrets, which is great. Petco still sells them. They usually display 4 to 9 ferrets at a cost of $149 each, and Petco's ferrets are supplied by Marshall Farms and transported from New York. There are only 2 primary ferret wholesalers in the U.S. that can legally sell to pet stores, and those are Triple F Farms in Sayre, Pennsylvania, and Marshall Farms in North Rose, New York. Marshall Farms' ferret inventory reached over 31,000 in May of 2014, and up to $50,000 in 2011, and was recently cited for violations of the Federal Animal Welfare Act related to veterinary care, sanitation, and conditions of the facilities. Now we look at the problems with long-lived birds. First, it's necessary to point out the model ordinance defines long-lived birds, right on the slide, as any bird whose life expectancy is expected to exceed 25 years, including but not limited to cockatoos, macaws, and Amazons. Now, most stores sell smaller birds and bird supplies, like Petco and PetSmart. Some birds can live up to 100 years, often outliving their owners. There are no state or federal regulations or standards for breeding or selling long-lived birds. And there's an overpopulation due to impulse purchasing without any prior education about their lifespan or how difficult to care for they are. And avian bird rescues and sanctuaries report that there's a parrot crisis, so just emphasizing that point again. According to Feathered Friends of Michigan, an astounding 75% of parrots living in captivity in the United States are living in less than suitable conditions. Consumers are not educated and purchase long-lived birds on impulse. They're misled into believing that parrots are easily kept pets. These birds quickly become unwanted, move to inadequate environments like the basement or the garage. And the average parrot will have between 5 to 10 homes in the first 7 years of his or her life. And there are 38 Michigan bird rescues listed on rescueshelter.com/Michigan. So now the problems with large reptiles. This one, it's good to quickly look at the definition. Again, the ordinance defines large reptiles as members of the class reptilian, including but not limited to monitor lizards, alligators, pythons, boa constrictors, venomous reptiles, and constrictor snakes that grow to more than 6 feet long. Now, most cities, townships, and villages in southeast Michigan already restrict possession of dangerous, wild, or exotic animals for public safety. The ordinance ensures retailers are not selling animals that are already prohibited. Dangerous animals cause law enforcement challenges during rescues or removals and can put families and neighbors at risk. The largest Nile monitors can reach up to 8 feet long, and monitors' well-developed claws and powerful jaws can cause serious injuries. Constrictor snakes, such as boas, pythons, and anacondas, larger than 8 feet long, are actually capable of killing a person. And there is an alligator rescue called Critchlow Alligator Sanctuary in Athens, Michigan. So that just shows that, you know, this is a problem, that people actually do keep these huge, large, exotic reptiles in their homes, and then they can no longer take care of them when they get too big and too dangerous. So when trying to get pet stores to transition to more responsible options, cooperation is better than legislation. In 2010, over 100 Michigan stores took the puppy-friendly pledge not to sell puppies and kittens. In 2015, 2 former puppy outlets pledged not to sell puppies and kittens, and those are the Gibraltar Trade Center in Mount Clemens and Greenwood Pets and Plants in Warren. Greenwood was shut down by the city when unfit conditions were found for the animals. At a cost of $20,000, the city seized nearly 200 animals. The new owners are now holding adoption events, so that's a great example. The Gibraltar Trade Center will only show Macomb County homeless animals through the Macomb County Animal Control and rescues approved by Animal Control. So this kind of illustrates that not all puppy stores are bad and not all owners are bad. One puppy store owner agreed to end puppy sales after seeing the inspection reports with violations. All stores should be given an opportunity to end sales. Unfortunately, not all stores want to walk away from the lucrative revenues, and then legislation would be needed. A common observation is that, you know, there are no puppy selling stores in my community. But even if this is the case, it's still important to pass the Humane Pet Acquisition Proposal. While box puppy stores are becoming a thing of the past, puppy retailers are finding new ways to mislead and deceive families. There are more and more active online sellers that could be purchasing from a breeder or dealer. Often they will tell families they're helping a family member sell their puppies, which isn't true. Some retailers are posing as upscale pet boutiques, offering tiny teacup toy dogs, which might be underage, and not tiny at all when fully grown. Selling high-end designer dogs, which are really mixed breeds, through boutiques and grooming salons, it's a marketing gimmick, and new outlets in Michigan open every year. So now I'm going to give a quick breakdown of a pet retail ordinance. First, they have to comply with federal, state, and local laws that are already on the books, and each jurisdiction is different. They have to be written in a way that corresponds to existing code as well. There is a findings section, which includes shelter statistics, customers that have purchased ill animals, and shows how this ordinance will fix those problems. There is a definition of terms section, which includes important definitions like what is a pet store. You know, you don't want to accidentally ban PetSmart from holding adoption events or something like that. The definition of terms is very important. There is a prohibited section, which would include either a full ban, meaning pet stores can only source from rescues and shelters. In 2009, South Lake Tahoe, California, was the first city to implement an ordinance that only allows pet stores to source from shelters and rescues. And then the other option is a ban that is standards-based, meaning standards for breeders are written into the ordinance. Standards of care ordinances are still good, but sourcing only from rescues and shelters is the best way to keep commercially bred animals out of the community. Some cities have restrictions on the type of USDA licensed breeders they can use. For example, pet stores cannot work with the worst of the worst. Breeders cannot have any direct violations in the last 3 years. A direct violation may be an ill animal that has not been seen by a veterinarian. These must be written even-handed and fairly. You can't say pet stores can only work with in-state suppliers. That would not be fair to the other breeders. And then there is a penalty section, which would include who will enforce and what the penalties will be. And finally, a phase-in period, which will allow existing stores to find homes for their animals and close out contracts such as those with the franchise. So you're going to have to give them a little bit of time to adjust. The remainder of the webinar will cover step-by-step instructions for implementing the Michigan Model Ordinance. Currently, 21 animal welfare organizations support the Humane Pet Acquisition Ordinance. The prohibited section of the Model Ordinance includes not only restrictions on the types of animals sold, but also restricts roadside sales and off-site retail. A certificate of origin is required for the remaining animals that are still allowed to be sold, like chinchillas, small furry animals, small birds, and small reptiles. The model ordinance was developed using language from other cities which have passed similar restrictions, including Austin, Texas, Glendale, California, and the city of East Providence, Rhode Island. Now, the city of East Providence ordinance restricts the sale of dogs produced in commercial, large-scale puppy mills. That was upheld by the federal U.S. District Court, providing an important legal precedent in the national effort to crack down on abusive mills. Key language from this ordinance was included in the Humane Pet Acquisition Model Ordinance. The Macomb County Corporate Council approved the final version to be used in Macomb County and other Michigan communities. This version was approved on June 11, 2015. Now, here's a diagram showing the model ordinance. Let's see, it shows that retail sales come from a supplier off-site, and that, you know, customers might not realize that right away. And so the exemption section of the ordinance is important. It excludes breeders, shelters, zoos, and nonprofit rescues. It essentially is saying that families should really be able to see where their animals are bred. And now we look at how to pass the Humane Pet Acquisition Ordinance. For more detailed information, be sure to look at our implementation guide, which will be posted on the Michigan Friends of Companion Animals website. It includes step-by-step instructions for passing the ordinance. And I will now hand it over to Pam Sordell to conclude the presentation.
Well, thank you, Alicia. That was very nicely done. I'm going to cover the last few slides. We should probably be wrapping it up in maybe 15 minutes. This section of the webinar is to show you step-by-step how to pass a pet retail ordinance in your own hometown. So this is kind of a generic step-by-step, learning the process, building a case, and speaking with city council members and in your community. So I'm going to also navigate the slides here. So step one is to learn the process. So the process for local legislation varies across the country. So you need to take time to get familiar with how things work in your community. It could be township, board of trustees, or city councils. You have to learn what their process is for getting ordinances passed. An official or employee of your local government may be helpful to you. For instance, in Chicago, the city clerk was actually helping the local advocates navigate through the process and pretty much champion the legislation. There's always someone that knows the rules and can maybe even could be the township supervisor. So typically for a city or county government, a bill is introduced to a city council member by a member of that council. These individuals are usually called council members or aldermen. In some cases, proposed ordinances will go to a small committee for review. Other times, the entire council may vote on it without a committee. And don't get frustrated or confused by the process. It may not go as smoothly or fast as you'd like, especially if there's an election year. You might want to wait till after the election. Proposed ordinances may be discussed at several meetings over a few months so that the public can comment on the ordinance. Sometimes amendments or changes will be suggested or made, though these amendments will also need to be voted on before it's included in the proposal. So step two is to do some homework. Doing your homework to tailor the proposal for your city or township could take some time and effort. We developed another webinar that includes more details on how to gather information you need. You can register for, we have 2 more webinars coming up in November called Prohibiting Retail Sales, Building a Case. And that'd be November 23rd. We're going to offer a lunch session and an evening session. So, when you're doing your homework, you want to know who the stakeholders are in your community. For instance, are there local shelters? Are there animal rescue groups, animal control officers? Are there already ordinances in place that you don't want to be redundant? So do they already restrict roadside sales of animals? You also want to know who's selling cats, dogs, rabbits, and ferrets that would be impacted by the ordinance. And don't forget to check grooming salons and flea markets. They also sell animals. And then who is supplying the pet stores? That takes a little bit of time. You have to learn how to find out who the breeders are and look at inspection reports. You can find out inventory numbers, how many adult dogs do they have. There's a lot of photos available now from the USDA, and we're going to go over all that in the Building Your Case webinar in November. You can also search online to see if there's any reviews of the pet store, see if there's any complaints online, and you can also request records from the local agencies that might be responding to complaints, like animal control or the police department. You also want to look at the shelter statistics in your county or community if you have a local animal control shelter. They're available through the Michigan Department of Agriculture. So you can find out how many animals they take in, how many have been adopted, and how many have been euthanized. That's also a good case to present why you would not want a pet store introducing unaltered animals. You also want to create a good list of alternative places to adopt. Sometimes that's the first question is, well, where do you want us to find a pet? Some city council members, leaders in the community don't realize there's foster-based rescues out there. They might not even know where their local shelter is. We also recommend using petfinder.com for search tools, so families can still find reputable breeders through local breed clubs and veterinarian referrals. The Humane Society of the United States has a guide how to buy a puppy. In addition, there's hundreds of breed-specific rescues in Michigan, so if someone says, well, I really want a standard poodle, there's likely a standard poodle rescue somewhere in Michigan or even through the country. So, to the public records, the last item on the list is FOIA requests, which is Freedom of Information Act requests. So you can collect public records. You have to just submit a FOIA request, which can simply be an email or letter. You want to be very specific on what you're looking for and the time frame to avoid delays and costs. By law, they have 5 days to respond to your request. They could ask for delays as well. So the next slide is step 3, build your case. Again, we will be covering building your case materials in the November 23rd webinars, and it will be recorded if you can't make it that webinar. When building your case, you will want to show your community why your community needs this ordinance and have the specific information related to your city, county, or pet stores and shelters. Eventually, you will need to condense your findings to a 2 to 3 minute speech. You can watch some of the testimony provided to the Macomb County Commissioners this past spring. We covered each animal. We wanted to educate each commissioner about the ferrets, the rabbits, and long-lived birds. So you can find that testimony out on the internet on our Michigan Friends of Companion Animals website. And we also have a frequently asked questions document that you can download from our website. It's currently tailored for Macomb County, but you can easily update it for your community leaders. So step 4 is work with opposition. So that would mean the opposition could be anybody. It could just be a city council member asking questions and opposing the retail ordinance, or it could be a pet store. It could just be someone in the community that doesn't want more regulation. So we're saying we want advocates to meet with or anyone can meet with the pet stores and talk to them about transitioning away from commercially bred animals, and then you see if they're willing to maybe offer rabbits or ferrets or dogs or cats for adoptions through local groups. You could even offer to coordinate adoption events with them. That's what we did with the Gibraltar Trade Center. We connected them with the local shelter, and now they're holding weekend adoptions. Some of the opposition arguments we hear most often are some pet stores work with good breeders. That always comes up. We don't want to punish the good stores. We always say, well, responsible breeders would never work with, sell wholesale. They belong to the breed club, and Alicia talked about that earlier. And why don't you raise the standards of breeders instead? That often comes up. Why are you going after the pet stores and punishing, the mom and pop stores when it's the neglect at the breeders? We agree that the standards of care should be raised. That we're not arguing about that at all. We fully support laws to impose higher tariff standards and more strict regulation to monitor and police high-volume breeders. It's a difficult process to bring these types of bills to law. So many attempts at the federal and state level try to do this have been unsuccessful. Senator Beda Warren introduced a large-scale commercial breeder registration bill in earlier this year in May. And we recently, just this week, Representative McCready also introduced the same bill on the House side. This is the second session that we are working on legislation at the state level, and so far it has not been successful. So we need to work at the local level as well. But we are trying state regulations on breeders at the same time. So pet owners have the right to obtain their pet from the provider of their choice. That also comes up. And we do not want to shut down any businesses. That's always something that the cities are concerned about. They want to be a business-friendly town. And we strongly support humanely run pet stores, but unfortunately, it actually costs the city more money. The families that buy these pets end up paying more in vet care, and also when they have seizures, they end up spending a lot of money to rescue the animals. So we do support humanely run pet stores. And of course, building your webinar will work on we'll have more talking points for the opposition. And potential opposition groups include pet stores, the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council, we call it PIJAC, the Hunt Corporation, Missouri Breeders Association. So, so those are primarily the four groups that sometimes oppose these stores. Maybe privately they would send a letter or email to City Council. Sometimes they do attend some of the review meetings. And step 5 is getting community support. So you want to maybe build an informal stakeholder outreach. You want to reach out to the local shelters, law enforcement, animal rescue organizations in your city. A diverse group is even better. So I kind of listed some ideas. You might want to talk to the chief of police, maybe even some breeders. If you know some breeders that are just home, small, hobby type breeders, you could talk to dog trainers. Or even pet-friendly businesses. So you have not just you know, animal advocates there, but you want a diverse group of local residents that would care about this issue. So gaining support is also important. You can also go to the county commissioners and ask them to pass a resolution to support the ordinance. And that goes a long way when you go to the cities. You can say, well, the county commissioners have reviewed this, they agree with it, and they want all the communities in the county to take a stand against puppy mills and keep the puppy mills out because it affects everyone in the area. So we'll go over working with your county commissioners in the Building Your Case webinar in November as well. So supporting a local ordinance means doing things like testifying at city council meetings, contacting city council members to express your support, and informing others about the ordinance. So even a big city, it can be common for very few people to get involved in local government, which means a small group of people are changing laws and policies. So getting active community support can make or break the legislation you're trying to pass. Okay, step 6 is finding a friend in office, and we're featuring Fred Miller from Mount Clemens. He was the county commissioner that helped sponsor our Humane Pet Acquisition Proposal resolution, and he is actively promoting the ordinance throughout his district. Public officials tend to take their constituents' interests seriously, so try talking to your own council member, alderman first. Each county has districts, or each city might have be divided into districts as well. So depending upon what part of the township you're located in, you might have one person that's assigned to your area. So as much as we like to think that people we vote for agree with us, this may not always work though. If your own council member isn't interested, don't despair. Try to find another official with an interest in animal issues and pitch your idea to them. Often your local animal control or nonprofit Humane Society can point you towards a sympathetic decision maker. They may have been working with the council on other issues for years. Step 7 is introduce the proposal. So here's just a list of ideas. You can start with a cover letter, so an email cover letter. You can send this to the mayor, city council person, city attorney. I often try to contact the supervisor or the city manager. Include the problems you want to fix and add details specific to the city or nearby cities so they know that it is a local issue. I spoke recently at a small township in Macomb County, and I mentioned the problems in Lenox. There was a retailer in Lenox that's importing 700 dogs to her home. So even though they might not have a puppy retail outlet, they could easily have a home business where they're peddling puppies out of the home. So in your letter, you also want to include the ask. So ask your mayor for a study group or meeting with the city attorney to review the example ordinance for consideration. And offer recommendation. Deliver the cover letter. This is my recommendation, that you would deliver the cover letter in person, ask for me, and they often are available and have an open door policy. Okay, so step 8 is going public. It's always fun to announce that your ordinance is up for review, but we use caution because sometimes drawing media attention does complicate and puts more pressure on the decision makers, and also it may attract even more opposition and delay the vote. So we always say you should work with your friendly council members. They would prefer not to go public and just to keep it within the city and during the reviews. So they do read the papers. Local officials do read the papers. So you could even schedule, if you do decide to go public, you can schedule a meeting with the editor or an editorial board and ask them to support your proposal. Contact the media outlets, including television or radio, to let them know about your efforts. You can write letters to the editor. They usually have to be 150, maybe 250 words. And you can also issue a press release or media advisory if you feel you need to gain more public support before a vote or to attend a committee meeting where issues are debated. So this is always something that sometimes it helps and sometimes it hurts. So always use caution and ask for guidance from your city council member. Step 9 is to testify. So if your ordinance is up for review, and sometimes there's several reviews, maybe there's a first review and then they come back and they vote on it during the second review. You want to attend and testify. They might have you testify during the item on the agenda, or they may say that you need to speak during public comment. So you want to prepare to speak at least 3 minutes to support your proposal, and you want to plan ahead of time to make sure everyone doesn't speak on the exact same points. This is very common at public hearings. For example, it may be a waste of time and frustrating for the decision makers to have a dozen people talk about the abuse and neglect at puppy mills without mentioning the taxpayer burden of animal control that manage animal homeless issues day to day. It's particularly helpful if you can get animal control officers to testify on behalf of their agencies. Enforcement professionals in uniforms can add an additional air of importance and mainstream acceptance to the issue. So we will provide, to help you with your testimony, we do provide fact sheets and responses to opposition arguments in the Building Your Case webinar in November that will help, that you could use to incorporate into your testimony. So step 10 is compromise if needed. So as easy and straightforward as all of this sounds, things may not run so smoothly. Whether because of enforcement issues or strong opposition, sometimes you have to compromise on your ordinance, and that's okay. Be prepared to compromise ahead of time. Know what parts of your ordinance are most important and which ones can be set aside if needed. So if your ordinance passes, and this model ordinance did pass in East Point, Michigan earlier this year, actually a couple months ago. This is September 1st. It wasn't really that long ago. September 1st, or I think that's when it passed. You've completed. So if you do win, you want to celebrate, and you also want to make sure that everything is well enforced and it will remain a part of law enforcement forever. So sometimes the city or county attorneys will change the language of the legislation. In other cases, the law may be challenged by court or defeated. Whatever the situation, keep an eye out for related issues in your community after the ordinance has passed. And if you are defeated, if it doesn't pass and you don't have enough votes, don't fret. You may win your battle you might not win the first time, but don't give up. Maybe your council just wasn't ready for this particular issue at this time. Like I said, maybe it's an election year and they want to wait till after elections are held. However, now you've introduced them to the many ways that puppy mills affect the communities, and you want to talk to them, to those who voted against your bill, to find out why. You can learn from the experience and try to pass it again better in the future. Start planning for your next victory. So I'm just about wrapping it up here. We do have resources available. The model Michigan ordinance, it's called the Humane Pet Acquisition Proposal, is available on our website. The Macomb County Commissioner's resolution and template is available on our website. We have a frequently asked questions document and fact sheets for each animal. We also have Michigan shelter statistics that show for each county shelter or licensed shelter how many animals they intake and rehome and euthanize. And then we have a list of Macomb County pet stores, and we'd probably want to do that for each county as we work along. It's all on our website there. And okay, now we're at the end here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm looking at my board, and I don't see any hands raised, and I don't see any questions in the question box. So maybe if I'm missing anything, I apologize. But I do not see any questions. We had quite a few on the last webinar, and you can always send us an email as well. Okay, so the last slide, we do have, just a reminder, we do have the Building Your Case webinar on November 3rd at 12 o'clock and 6:30. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us. And we would, some of the questions that have been asked before are, would we come and help you in your community if we can? There are a group of subject matter experts that have been attending City Council meetings in Macomb County. We're mostly based here in Southeast Michigan, so we have a ferret representative from a rescue, actually two, and a couple rabbit rescues and a long-lived bird person. We do have some speakers that can come and speak about the ordinance, and also these webinars are recorded, so we could always send a link to these webinars for your public officials if they wanted to learn more about the ordinance. So we would be willing to come to your community if you would like to pass it in your hometown. So I still don't see, I see a question. Okay, I'm trying to read this here. All right, so all right, they're just thanking us for the webinar. So yep, you're welcome. And I don't want to take anybody's time. We did wrap it up in 40 minutes, and we will publish this link. We will publish this link on our website, and we'll have it on our YouTube, so if you want to refer back to it. So, well, thank you everyone for attending, and hope you can join us in November at the Building Your Case webinar. Thanks.